So let's talk about COVID fraud. And I know it's so incredibly rampant. I mean, yes, I found a couple articles, even the New York Times, even the New York Times that loves these type of like aid programs and stuff like that. Even they have to publish an article about how crazy the fraud is. But I believe we're just scratching the surface. I mean, during COVID, I know people had gotten 300K loans, 100K loans from the government. That probably, I don't know if they're forgivable or not, but so much money was just given away. And people wonder why real estate and any kind of tangible asset that you can buy, like Ferraris or whatever, are in such in high demand. Used cars, so much money was created. We are not. I mean, I don't expect the government to do some like really investigative fraud searches and stuff like that because it'd probably be too embarrassing for them. Just how like in the U.S. military, they can have they order a lot of equipment that they never use or just overpay for things, super simple things, but it would just be too embarrassing, so they just cover it up. I'm pretty sure that they're not in a hurry to bust everybody because if they really dug in and start looking at every single claim and just did it like a basic search, they'll probably uncover ungodly amount of fraud, waste, abuse, and it's just too crazy. So like we have here a Georgia man used 56,000 of COVID relief loan to buy Pokemon card. So the federal government has it and is going to try to auction it off. Buy a rare Pokemon card. So how does this happen? Um, so charged Tuesday with account wire fraud, according to U.S. Attorney Office for the Southern District of Georgia. Um, Lied about how many employees he had and revenue his business generated when filed an economic injury disaster loan. So yeah, how crazy is that? There's like absolutely no verification of anything, and they're just handing out money based upon some of the figures that you put. So some figures you put in the application, and ta-da! So so in July 2020, on behalf of a business, his application stated that business had 10 employees and gross revenue of 235K, which is, it seems like a red flag to me right off the bat. You can afford 10 employees on 235K worth of revenue. I mean, you're paying everybody 20K and they don't have any profit. That's like your only expense of the employees. Complete bullshit. Anyway, he got awarded $85,000 loan. Yeah, he bought this Pokemon card, which is probably worth a lot more now than the 57,000 that he paid for. Um, that's just a stupid example. Here we go. Check out a New York Times article. FBI sees massive fraud in groups food programs for needy children. So, and as far as it goes, it's one of those things where like, if could you imagine if the same type of like had like real detective work to look into the fraud in any kind of government system, like the public school system, um, not in the fraud of like people like creating like fake children and getting money for like attendance, not like that, but just to see how it's like how many teachers you have, how much they get paid, or how many custodians do you have, and just like if you could just add up the number of all the custodians and all the like the non-teaching staff, you could just see that the unions just want more people on the payroll and want more union dues, so they just hired just it's just nothing but bloat, stuff like that. And then the what really solves this is the private market or private charity, because if you actually put your own money on the line, your own hard-earned money, well, you're going to make damn sure that the money is going to be used uh, the most productive way possible. But of course, if you have this government, the government doesn't care. It's not their money, and the people that are receiving these grants, it's not their money either. They're going to put it in their pocket. They don't care. You know what I mean? So this is just a recipe for just huge waste, fraud, and abuse. Last year, with federal government making available huge new sums of money for programs to feed needy children during the pandemic, a nonprofit organization called Advanced Youth Athletic Development set up was what is described as enormous child care operation in northwest Minneapolis that could prepare 5,000 dinners each weeknight. And you see, this is crazy too. Like, you think that if you're going to commit fraud, at least you would have some kind of operation going and feeding some kind of children. Let's say if you claim to give out 5,000 dinners, would you at least create a program or a dining hall that feeds at least like 1/5 of that? So at least when they start investigating you, you have like some excuses, some potential deniability. Like, no, we just miscounted the children. But it's like if you don't have completely anything, then it's how crazy. Based on the group claims, the state of Minnesota channeled $3.2 million of the federal food aid to the program. But on a sub-zero morning in January, the FBI carried out a series pre-dawn raids around the region. It revealed a sprawling investigation into Advanced Youth Athletic Development and other groups like it. And with much larger nonprofit organization, Feeding Our Future, it was responsible for ensuring that the money provided to the smaller groups was spent properly. Court filings, the FBI said it discovered a massive fraud scheme among groups that Feeding Our Future was supposed to oversee, saying they siphoned tens of millions of dollars by charging taxpayers for non-existent meals. In affidavits filed in federal court, the Justice Department said it was investigating at least 15 different feeding operations. And you know what I was wondering? Let's say if they didn't commit any fraud whatsoever. What are the profit margins for government contracts? Because usually you would think that the profit margins are pretty nice, pretty cushy. Like, you don't have to commit with government contracts. You don't have to commit much fraud because the government makes sure to overpay for everything anyway. So I'm pretty sure they could have been running a legitimate business and have a healthy profit margin. Together, the FBI said these groups, all of which were supposed to be overseen by Feeding Our Future, had received more than $65 million from federal food programs during the coronavirus pandemic. Almost none of this money was used to feed children, the government wrote in one filing. Instead, conspirators misappropriated the money and used to purchase real estate, cars, and other items. And I guess with any type of fraud or money, like, counterfeiting or whatever, it's just probably too intoxicating. Once you see that the government is completely not watching or not paying attention, or there's completely no accountability, then it's easier and easier to start, it's like people are like, oh shit, there's a lot of food at the trough. Well, why don't we just 500 meals? No, we're providing 5,000 meals, A reporter recently visited, and this is the thing, this is what kills me. This is the New York Times, and they support these food programs. So I'm sure it pains them to report on stuff like this. Yet, I'm pretty sure this is just scratching the surface. This is just one of like the millions of programs that just, was looked into and it was caught red-handed. And I mean, it shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody, because if you just type into Wikipedia, welfare and government spending, I mean, even though you're made to believe from an early age that the United States is this, ruthless, capitalist, laissez-faire system, dog eat dog, nothing but like railroad tycoons crushing people into the ground. The United States is always at the top as far as welfare spending per GDP. I mean, with the government, the government spending per GDP, gross domestic product. But if you were to look at all welfare spending, that, if you include the private welfare that America has. It's the first or second. Like France is just like slightly above us. So, United States is a welfare state. Spends a shit ton of money on food or just on welfare in general, and the narrative on the left is completely the opposite. And if people were truly leftists or truly want to help people, instead of advocating for even more spending, which seems ridiculous because like we're already like a really super bloated welfare state, they would fight to reorganize the spending to have maximum impact. But of course, it's politically much easier to tax the Koch brothers or tax people more, tax the millionaires and the billionaires more. That's an easy sell. It's much you don't want to run into a political minefield by saying, hey, this is a wasteful program, or this is a wasteful program too, because this program is only feeding X amount of kids, and look at all this lard, and look at all these bullshit union jobs, and we could just axe all this, have way less jobs, but much more impact on the kids or whoever you want it to serve. Of course, they're not going to do that. One reporter recently visited the address listed for advanced youth athletic development. There was no sight of a kitchen or a large childcare facility. It was a second-story apartment. See, this gives me ideas, man. I'm not trying to commit any fraud or anything, but it's like maybe I should get some of these government grants. Set up some homeless feeding station or some kid. This is perfect. Feeding kids, that'll be a fun job. Just get a bigger warehouse, get some government funds. Neighbor at the apartment across the hall said no when asked if she had ever seen 5,000 children there. I've never seen kids go in there. No one yet been charged in this case, and the leaders of Feeding Our Future, Advanced Youth Athletic Development, and other nonprofit groups have denied wrongdoing. But the case highlighted how the government reliance on nonprofits to help carry out an array of programs can increase vulnerability to fraud, a program that only increases over the past several years as Washington pumped trillions of dollars into pandemic aid packages. Okay, so I'll translate. This is what the New York Times is actually going for. They still want all these programs. And they don't want to address the actual systemic problem of when you have people giving out money on other people's behalf. It's not their money. You're going to have extreme waste. They're going to point at these nonprofits and say, hey, that's why the government should do this. See, it's these nonprofits that are full of fraud, but the U.S. government itself, the unions or whatever, we need to set up a special department in the government to do this. Only, I'm pretty sure, I mean, obviously you might not have extreme fraud like this, but you're going to have other huge waste fraud, it's going to become less and less effective over time. More and more people are going to be making, $200,000 salaries and union dues or whatever. That aid has forced new attention on the role of nonprofits, in particular acting as conduits and overseers of federal money that flows through them via the states and then smaller organizations that carry out programs. States and the federal government. Well, so clearly these programs are vulnerable to huge fraud. So why does it take an FBI investigation? Shouldn't it be like an overseer that's kind of like, okay, we spent $1 million, that should equal to at least 4,000 meals or whatever. So let's at least send some kids somewhere. That the group claims this is like whatever. Come on, man. Clearly the government itself doesn't care about this money. Just like Medicare, there's more Medicare fraud than all of the profits from health insurance combined. I know it's a shocking fact. Even the system incentivizes the organizational to push more money out the door by giving them a cut of it. In this State of the Union, President Biden, oh God, yeah. I don't care what goddamn Joe Biden said. So let's say here, the watchdogs, here we go, can keep as an administrative fee up to 15% of the funds they pass along. Critics say that creates a perverse incentive, a reason for the watchdog not to bark. The structure, they say, rewards sponsors that pursue bigger networks and larger checks instead of those who crack down on fraud, a problem that has been evident for decades. Since the FBI raids, news coverage by the Star Tribune and Sean Journal, a local nonprofit media outlet, has revealed that some of the operators of Feeding Our Future sites had criminal records and that former top aide Mayor Jacob Fry of the Minneapolis Democrat was among those under investigation. These aides denied wrongdoing, of course. From 2019 to 2021, the numbers of children in Feeding Our Futures network increased to about 400,000, from about 4,000 according to state records. What the? So they 100 times 100 times improved their efficiency? The revenue flowing through this network increased to about 197 million. So let's get, okay, so this is the lady that's committing the fraud here. Another operation housed in the Safari restaurant claimed to be feeding 6,000 children a day on its own, more than the total number of children living in the restaurant zip code. Miss Brock said the children came from surrounding areas because of the food was appropriate for East African immigrants, many of whom live in the area, I'm sure. So yeah, we'll have this grade school teacher here. Lily Cooks, who operates a small daycare center in Minneapolis, said she had worked with Feeding Our Future and received about 30 per month for a year of the snacks she received for her children. After Feeding Our Future was raided, she said new sponsor called to recruit her and immediately offered a plan to fool the state. It's like, what if the woman suggested Miss Crooks told the government at her snack was actually a full meal instead? We could call it a breakfast and make 5 times more, Miss Crooks recalled the woman saying. Miss Crooks said that she declined and was disheartened by the offer. They're the watchdogs, right? Yeah, this is so sad, of course. I mean, if the system was set up properly, we wouldn't... we can just cut the taxes and cut actual budgets by probably 50%, because probably more than that is actually going to people's pockets, creating more inflation, buying up real estate, buying up Ferraris and stuff like that.